Good evening, Lauren, or should I say good morning? How are you? And welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Jackie. Thanks so much for having me on. It's awesome to be here and to finally chat with you and connect.
Oh, yeah, I'm super excited. Went halfway around the world to find a human design lawyer. It's very exciting.
Yeah, looking that far. Cool. I love that.
And so, I mean, I haven't spoken about human design on the podcast yet. And so it's a good introduction for everyone. I, similar to you, found human design in about 2020 and found it very useful as an experiment to run on myself, like a bit of a personality type, and just to understand a little bit more and see if it rang true. And something that I've found really useful with human design are the authorities, particularly because it's a sort of a pathway to be able to understand how to make decisions. And so that's what I really wanted to talk to you today about.
Yes, yeah. And I love the authorities as well. And I love as well that you, through Legally Wise Women and this podcast, really guide people to use their authority effectively, whether it's using the language of human design or not, because it's so important for us to be empowered and understand what's right for us. And yeah, so I'm really passionate about the authorities in human design. And as you've already touched on, there's so many different elements you could look at, which are super helpful. But why I love the authorities is because it brings us back to who we are. It brings us back to our bodily intelligence. I think so many of us have been conditioned to only be in the mind, only consider logical reasoning. And of course, we all have amazing, wonderful minds, and they will form a part of the puzzle in any decision-making journey. But we also have so many other tools, which is part of our bodily intelligence framework. And human design helps us to guide us back to those. And some of them we can get into a bit more detail. So two of those tools, for example, are our intuition, our gut feelings, and these are really important when it comes to making decisions. And human design can show us which of those are more potent for us, which is our main authority that sort of takes precedence. So yeah, I'm really passionate about that, and I know you are too.
I am. And it's interesting. I haven't actually thought about this before because quite often, um, people generalize and say that women are more in touch with their intuition. But from a human design perspective, I think that the percentages of divisions with authorities are equal across genders, aren't they? Do you know?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I actually don't know that fact, but I'm just thinking about the people I've done readings for.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would say it's split. I don't think, yeah, there's definitely males with intuitive authority, actually
Hmm.
loads with that with sacral authority, which we'll get into a
Hmm.
bit more, no doubt, but it's all about that gut feeling. And yeah, I don't think it's as split as society kind of makes out as like, well, focused on just women.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, that's really cool actually. I hadn't thought of that angle, but putting the spotlight on um males and the masculine having these deep intuitive um intelligence tools as well.
Yeah, yeah, very interesting. Shall we start then, I suppose, talking about males with emotional authority? And the reason I say that is because my husband has emotional authority. So I'm living with one. And I think it's nearly 50% or more of the population who have an emotional authority. Mm.
Exactly, yeah. So it's the most common authority for sure. And yeah, emotional authority is someone who is designed to make decisions using emotional intelligence, but being mindful around their emotions. So, riding their emotional wave is key for them. They're not necessarily designed to make decisions in the moment, on the spot. It's healthy for them to sleep on it, take a moment, and also work out the length of their emotional wave. There's it will vary for every person. Your emotional wave might be half a day, it might be a few days, it might be a week. And that can be really helpful and empowering to begin to understand if you have emotional authority. my sister and my partner both have emotional authority as well. So I can definitely, speak to this. And it's been interesting kind of observing the length of their emotional waves and helping like guide them through decision making, and how powerful it's been when they've kind of just slept on something and not leapt into something at the height of an emotion. Because you obviously find, and I'd love to hear your take on this, you generally find, as someone with emotional authority will like say yes to the thing. They might get an invite and say yes. And then by the time the thing comes, they're like, oh, why did I agree to that? Or they're in a bit of a grump and they say no to something when it's actually a really aligned opportunity. So yes, tuning into your emotions is so powerful for you in that emotional intelligence, but kind of riding the wave to be on that even keel with your emotions.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one, actually, because I hadn't noticed that so much in my husband. I've noticed his indecisiveness and his lack of confidence around making a decision, because he's on this emotional journey and he has doubt, and then he has, oh my God, what about this and this? And it does take him more than a couple of days to process that and see it through. And like I said to you before we started recording, and we'll get to my type of authority in a minute, but I'm already sitting having made the decision, and I just have to sit back and wait for him to go through the process, and he comes to the same point after a few days. But yes, it's a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely see that with my partner as well. I'm like, oh, okay, yep, the thing, I was there a few days ago. Cool. Yeah, we're finally arrived at the same spot. Yeah.
Yeah. But
And
then if you think from our client's perspective, and if we know that they're an emotional person, giving them time to process something to come to a decision, but then also thinking about if we take a client into a full day mediation and we expect them to make a decision on the day, how much pressure that applies to them. And then the emotional wave that they're going to process after that and feel the regrets and all the things that they might feel afterwards. So even just if we could have really highly educated clients about what their authority is, and knowing actually we need to space this mediation over 3 days.
Exactly. I love that take and insight, because so much of the world, whether it's the workplace or, as you say, like legal dispute mechanisms have been built for one type, one way of operating. And it's so powerful to understand how you work, so you can begin to carve out things in a way that work better for you. And I love that, as well as like if lawyers had used this as a tool as well to work with their clients in that way. Yeah, I think it'd be so helpful. Yeah.
All right. Let's get into a couple of the other authorities. And you spoke about intuition before, but the difference as well, I think, to speak about gut feel and intuition will be interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Because I used to use these interchangeably. Before I found human design, I used to speak about gut feeling and intuition just as kind of as the same thing. And they are, to the extent that they are both forms of bodily intelligence. But human design separates them. And I think, it's a really helpful and powerful separation. So the next authority in human design, kind of the next most popular authority, is sacral authority, which is gut authority, the gut feeling, which you have, Jackie. And I'd love to hear more about your insights on it, but just in headline terms, it's very much about that gut feeling, and it's quite visceral and loud and almost hard to ignore and very in the moment. And compare that to intuition, which is the next most common form of authority after sacral. It's very it's quiet. And this is my authority, actually, so I can really speak to this. It's quiet, it's fleeting. It's also very in the moment like sacral, but it's much more gentle, very quiet. It can be there for half a second and then gone. And so it really takes a lot of sort of self-awareness and discernment if you have splenic authority, or we all are intuitive anyway, so it's something to work on whether you have this authority or not. But it really requires getting quiet, and meditation is a great tip for and tool if you have splenic authority or want to nurture your intuition. So that's how they both differ. One is much louder and obvious and like that gut feeling, and one is a lot quieter. But I'd love to hear your take on it, Jackie, as someone with sacral authority.
Yes, that's right. And maybe a little both, because I have a defined spleen as well. And I have really, now that I understand more about authorities, learnt to really trust that gut feel, because it doesn't hang around. It is in the moment and it's responsive to what's happening. So you can't then go, just give me another sign because I just want to double check that. And if I am actually being myself and I'm quite relaxed, I will be making a lot of guttural sounds. So if I'm eating something lovely, I will be getting right into it and making noises. And when something's presented to me that's a no, I'll be like or straight away. Like it is really it comes out before you even are conscious of it, if you're really allowing it to. But then I think my sense of the spleen, as you said, is a lot quieter. It's not it doesn't feel like it's part of me even. My spleen almost feels like it talks to me in my voice, but quietly. And it usually says to me things to me that I wouldn't usually say to myself. So I've only experienced it a couple of times that I can actually remember and was conscious of it. And one of those times was when I was having a stressful moment and I actually heard in my own voice, everything's going to be okay. Because that's not something that I would ever say to myself, but I heard that.
Wow. Wow. Love that. And I love those examples you gave around sacral authority and listening to the gut as well, putting a voice to it, because people often ask me, well, how can I work with that gut feeling? Like, how can I identify it? How can I begin to trust it? And one of the things I always say is, there's a couple of things, is put a voice to it, get playful. Like children are so connected to their gut response, and then they become conditioned out of it. Like children go, oh no, I don't want that, or yay, that's exciting. And it's like really creating more of a relationship between your voice and that gut feeling, just as you said. I love that. And the other thing, and I'd love to know your take on this, and if you've seen it show up or if you use this, is the gut loves very specific things. It needs something to respond to, like you said, the response. And it doesn't necessarily work well with open-ended questions or open-ended options. So for example, if someone said to you, where do you want to go for dinner tonight, Jackie? That might not be helpful. But if someone says, do you fancy Thai or Italian? There's something to respond to, and the gut could go, ooh, Thai, or
Yes.
Do you connect with that?
Oh yes, more so actually in any other area other than being coached by someone. Because being a business owner myself, you're really encouraged to ask questions. I'm not a question asker when it comes to myself. I have to be asked questions. So if a coach asks me fairly closed questions, then I can sort of guide a pathway. But when they're like, you can ask me a question anytime, I never ask any questions. That's me.
Yeah. That's a really great example. I hadn't thought of it the other way around either. Yeah. I love that. And also, again, knowing if any of your clients do have sacral authority when it comes to making legal decisions, it's like giving them specific things to respond to rather than open-ended legal options, whatever that might be. Or
for sure. Yeah. And then also allowing them to trust it too, because I think sometimes we can create more doubt for someone, but when they have made a decision, we need to let them make the decision.
Yes, love that piece as well. And that's actually something I'm really passionate about, and I often see so people who come forward for readings and things who want to begin to implement this, the next stage is usually trust. And how do I begin to trust it? Okay, I'm starting to feel that gut feeling, but how do I act on it? Especially if over years I've only been conditioned to make decisions based on the mind and logic. And I would say for that is just begin to experiment. Maybe try with the small things first, rather than say a big legal decision. Start around the decisions of what shall I have tonight for dinner, and get playful with it. And you slowly begin to build those inner trust muscles in yourself as you say, oh, well, that actually, I chose that based on the gut feeling and that led to a good thing. Cool. And you start just getting a little bit more confident.
Yeah, for sure. I think what I did early on as well was still go through the mental process, but actually note what my initial feeling was, go through the mental process and still come out the same way as what I first thought anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love that.
I wonder though if that's a little bit of reverse, was it cognitive bias or whatever they say when you just come to the same conclusion that you wanted to.
yeah.
Anyway, all right, so they're the three most common. Then we've got some pretty uncommon ones, but very interesting as well, which add a more flavor to humanity. So what are some of the other ones?
Yeah. So the next one, and actually this is the rarest, is ego authority. And this is someone who is designed to make decisions, but from the heart and based on what they want. It actually is quite a selfish authority, and it's aligned to be like, I want this. And then the other piece is my heart in it. So factoring in these two things, is this something I want? And that might be tricky in a world, that doesn't necessarily empower us to be self-focused sometimes if you're focused on the other. So that might be a journey for you if you have ego authority, is actually owning that and know it's okay, I want this and I'm going to own it. And also factoring in, is my heart in this? And also, do I have the energy for this? Do I feel more motivated? So without getting too detailed, the heart-centered human design is a center for motivation. It's actually a mini, it's called a motor center, which I like to describe as a mini battery pack. So if something makes you feel more motivated and like you want to get to it, that's probably a clue that it's right for you as well.
I've got no comment around that because I have not come across it.
It is a really rare one. I've come across more frequently the next two, well, three authorities I'm going to talk about. And even though more people have, again, hopefully this isn't too technical, a defined heart center, it's actually rare for someone to have ego authority. And so the next authority is self-projected authority. So this is someone who really benefits when making a decision from sounding something out with someone. They, not necessarily to get their advice, but just sound it out. They really reach clarity by speaking things into existence, by speaking things out. And they often, definitely tend to have like powerful voices, and just sounding things out can be really powerful for them.
Okay, that's an interesting one. I do remember that one, and I do remember coming across a lady who was very aware that she had that, and very conscious that she wanted to talk through the process. She was very clear that she didn't want advice or feedback. She just wanted you to listen to what she was saying, because then she came to her own conclusion just by talking about it.
Interesting. Love that. And another good tip for people with self-projected authority, if like no one's around to sound out to, actually, and even if they are, it's like having trusted people to sound out to as well. Another tip I usually share is like voice noting. Even if it's voice noting yourself, like there's a lot of power in your own voice. So that can be a cool tool if there's like no one to sound out to. And then the next one is called mental authority, although I prefer to call it environmental authority. And this is the one that potentially is people with mental authority have what's called a defined mind. So they are more, it's more aligned for them to like think in logical ways, to use their powerful genius and bring that into the mix. However, that's really only when it comes to external things. So offering their insights to guide others externally. So what's really powerful for them when it comes to making decisions is their environment, being in the right environment. How, because the rest of their charts are so open and they're really sensitive to their environments in other ways, it can be really inputting. So the people you're around, the physical spaces, and it's also very powerful for them to sound out as well. Mm-hmm. So a great mix for them is kind of sounding out on a walk in nature, I usually say, or any environment that's really helpful for you. So sounding out with someone and being in a really supportive environment. And not getting too in the brain. Yes, you're a genius. Yes, you've got this defined mind. Yes, it's aligned for you to think in logical terms, but that's usually when it comes to your work and your craft and guiding others. So just noting that you're not meant to be so wrapped up in your mind, your beautiful genius mind, when it comes to making decisions, but for tuning into that bodily intelligence, which will ebb and flow a little bit for you. You'll have access to all of the things I've discussed, but being in the right environment will be key for you.
Fascinating. Because again, you're thinking about our clients and going through legal challenges, and they're often pulled into very uncomfortable spaces that we don't, try to make pretty or comfortable for people. In fact, we probably try and do the opposite to make people uncomfortable and intimidated often. And, the gray and the blue environments in corporate and, the little boxed spaces and the horrible lighting and the stale air and all the things. So the importance of being able to take a break and get out of the space.
Yes. I love that example. I haven't thought of it in that way, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not conducive to aligned decision making in that sense. Yeah. And also, I guess, when it's not so much like an example like that, where it's a meeting or a mediation, something that came to mind that could be really aligned is if you're speaking to your lawyer and you have mental authority, going out for a walk whilst you're on the phone could be really supportive.
Perfect. That is a good way of thinking about it as well. Yeah, interesting. All right, what else have we got?
Well, the final authority is the most unique, and it's kind of called no authority, because only reflectors in human design can have this. And I know we haven't really touched on types, but reflectors are 1% of the population, and so super unique, and they have all of their centers in their human design chart are open. So they're very sensitive beings, very sensitive to their environment, people's opinions, the things that are going on in the collective, different themes in the office, whatever it is. And it's really key for them to wait 28 days before making a decision, which sounds very specific. But I would just say generally waiting on things to make a decision, enable them time to feel into things, to sample different versions of the thing. They're quite chameleonic beings and really take on the environment and the people and around them. So like doing that in small sampling ways can be really helpful for them to make a decision. Yeah,
I find reflectors the most fascinating. I think most of us who get into human design do, because it's just how influenced and how much someone can absorb other people's energies, and as you said, be a chameleon. But then again, I mean, we all have some open centers usually, and so then I start thinking about, well, how much do we influence each other in decision making when we're in each other's presences, and how much should we go and have our own space to be able to tap into our own energy without being interrupted by other people's energies? So I start going down these rabbit holes as well.
Exactly, same. And that's like another layer, isn't it? So I think first it's like learning your authority, and then it's journeying with your own open centers and where you're likely to be more influenced by other people. I think we've already touched on it at the beginning, but we both have open emotional centers. So we are going to be very influenced. We'll be, the gift of that is like we're empaths. We feel the emotions of people in the world around us. That helps us really tune in at a deep emotional level. But the other part of that is we're feeling other people's emotions, and they will imprint our decision making, especially when we're around people with defined emotions. So I think awareness is the first point of that. Like, awareness is key to anything, and just firstly being aware of that is a great tool. And then journeying with, well, how do I kind of squeeze out these emotions from the day that aren't mine, or not factor in these emotions in this particular decision.
Yes, us poor non-emotionals, we're actually more emotional sometimes than emotionals, because we we amplify, and we just and then you'd have to remember, no, that's not my emotion. Let it go. Let it go.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, it's all good and well us having dived deep into this and starting to apply. But as you say, awareness is the key, because unless someone starts to learn their own type and authority, how can they start applying it? And the other problem is as well, is that, when someone's trying to find a lawyer, no lawyer really puts in their profile what their human design is, do they? So how do we know? And, I often talk about the vibe, but, the vibe is hard to describe as well. And, the authorities probably come down to that a little bit too. And there's other elements in human design that, when even I'm a split type, and when I'm with someone else who makes me whole, it can feel so good, but that's not real. Can you talk a little bit about trying to find people to work with and how some of these interactions work?
Yeah. Firstly, I live for a world where we're all putting our profiles out there, our design and our authority, and it's on our lawyer profiles. And but anyway, it's not coming anytime quite soon. So until that time, I think, firstly, I would say, kind of bigger picture, the more we know ourselves, sometimes the more we can know and the more we know ourselves, and we're on this deeper journey with ourselves, we can make more discerning decisions. And there's almost no explanation for it, but we just feel things are right or not right. So I would just say, like, an ongoing journey. And I'm just so into personal development and learning who we are from an empowered point of view, and how to utilize our strengths, our gifts, make aligned decisions. So I think if you're on that journey, amazing. And that can be really helpful to continue and sort of deepen into, because it will only benefit you whenever you're making any kind of decision. And then I think on a practical level, let's say, when you are choosing a lawyer to work with, I know you've kind of shared a lot of tips around this. So initially, I think it's great to start with the logical mind. Like, if you haven't had any, recommendations or something, start researching and checking the person is qualified in the area that you're looking for. And then beyond that, I think to kind of activate that vibe, like find out what the vibe is. I think connecting with the person is a really great tool, whether that's on the phone, on a video call, in person, and really feeling into them and feeling what they can offer, and feeling their sincerity and their integrity. And I'm really passionate about these things, because I think in these days, I think there's a lot of people, places, things that are very loud online, and they've got their marketing on point, and they may say the right things, and they may look like they can serve you with your legal problem, but what's underneath that as well? So I think like meeting in person as far as you can, online, whatever that looks like, or via a phone call, is really key to feel into like the integrity and the sincerity and someone's experience with the thing as well. And feeling into it. Like, if you do know your human design, like leaning on that a bit, like beginning to experiment and see what it would feel like if you were making a decision based on that authority.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I was just sitting thinking about what it would be like if, in our first appointments, we shared each other's date of birth and quickly did a chart.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it
I'd
be
love
great?
that, yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we start that. We'll put it out to the world, guys. If you would like that, we can do that.
Yeah, exactly. But what would you recommend for choosing the right lawyer, or making a decision in that context?
Yeah, look, I still always come back to really trusting the vibe that you get, because if people don't use this language yet around authorities and they're not exactly sure what their authority is, it is really just starting to trust your gut feel, because and that's why I want people generally to do, 2 or 3 initial appointments with lawyers, not just go with the first person. And because a lawyer is trained to present confidently and to make you feel confident and to make you, feel like, yep, they've got this, I'm going to be cool. But in fact, that's how they'll all portray it. But there'll be someone amongst the 2 or 3 that you try that will just be like, oh, I can actually just be myself, and I'm not, I don't have to change how I communicate. I'm not being belittled. I'm being listened to. I think that those things make all the difference, because if you are going to be working with someone for months, it's what you're going to need.
Exactly. I love that example. Yeah. I think that's the key takeaway. Who do you feel most yourself around?
Yeah.
I love that. Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Lauren, I know you do readings. There might be some people who now want readings to have a deeper understanding. Where can people follow you, find out more about you, all the things?
Yes, so the best place is my website, www.legallydifferent.com. That's the best place to find out a bit more about me and the different kind of readings I offer. I'm also quite active on Instagram, which is at Legally Different. And yeah, I mainly use human design to help people find, the term I like to use is their soul success sweet spot. So fulfillment and purpose in their work, primarily for lawyers and corporate professionals, but not exclusively. I've worked with all sorts of people, which I'm definitely open to. So yeah.
Very exciting. So yeah, please, everyone, go and check Lauren out, because she's come from the corporate big law sort of space, and this is life-changing. So yeah, it's great to be able to have that insight. So thank you so much for agreeing to have a chat with me this evening. It's been brilliant.
Oh, thank you, Jackie. Thanks so much for that. And I just want to say I love what you're doing. Everything from even the name Legally Wise Women to the focus of this podcast, empowering people to make aligned decisions for them in disputes and all the legal journey. I think it's really important, and I think it's really handing back power to the people, for want of a better term. And I think that's really where we're going. And I love how you're doing that. You're empowering people on their legal journeys to make wise decisions. And yeah, I'm all about that, and love that unique way that you are navigating the legal space and offering this unique way of doing it.
Thank you so much.